Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And thank you very much for stopping by again. I have a story to share with you, a true story in just the last few weeks. A story that has led me to consider setting up a service of sorts to at least some people who are coming into Panama. And let me explain how that happens, how it works. But you're getting advance notice. It's at its stage of being put together. When the new site is sufficiently done that I can put it up, something to see, I'll have a fuller explanation then and send out a newsletter to retirement wave members, letting them know about it. And if you're, by the way, if you're not signed up for that newsletter, it rarely comes out, so you're not going to get hit with a lot of it. I'll put the address down below, and you can always come in and sign up if you want to. Otherwise, it will eventually get officially mentioned here at the YouTube channel. What happened was that a woman wrote me, Brenda, about 3 weeks ago, I guess now, and she said she was headed down with her husband to buy an apartment in Panama City, and they were going to be here for about a week. Could I be of any help? It turns out that her daughter is a member of Retirement Wave, and when her mother said she was going to do this, she said, well, you ought to contact Bob Adams and ask him. Of course, my initial reaction is, oh boy, someone coming down to buy an apartment in 1 week. Oh dear, I wasn't very comfortable with it. It takes time to your first trip down to get to know the country, to get a sense of really what you want to do. And if you come down here determined that you know exactly what you're going to do before you set foot in the country, it typically ends up being a problem. So I wasn't too excited about it, but I asked her for some more information. And it turns out she and her husband had been down here a couple times before, spent quite a bit of time in the country, had been around, traveled around. She knew she wanted to have a home and an apartment in Panama City. She had a very good idea of the neighborhood, generally speaking, where she wanted to have it. She knew what her price range was and how much flexibility they might be in that. She knew how many bedrooms and so forth, whatever. She was looking for a place she hoped that she would be able to rent for a year or two prior to her and her husband coming down to live there. This changed everything because I thought, well, all right, she knows what she wants. She knows where she wants it, at least within reason, a reasonably small area. And she knows how much she wants to spend and everything else. She knows enough about Panama to know that this is what she wants, and that's very important. So I thought, okay, I called a friend who is a real estate, well, he's a real estate agent. He's really more than that. He's a developer, or his firm is, and they actually create the developments that people purchase in here in Panama. But of course, he's also an agent. He can sell real estate. Above all, though, I chose him because, one, I know him very well. I've known him for over a decade. He's an honest and straightforward person, the most I've ever met anywhere in real estate. I really, really admire him. And secondly, because his firm doesn't have any developments in Panama City. So there was no danger of a conflict of interest. He could show people and help them choose an apartment. He would receive half of the commission for the sale of an apartment, but it didn't make any difference whose it was. And he had no incentive to show his own company's developments because they don't have any. So that eliminates that conflict of interest immediately. And so I thought, this is something I'll ask him about. And he was a little bit skeptical about it too. Does she really know what she wants? Is she really sure? Because we just don't have the time to be tour guides, for people who are still trying to figure out what they want. But she sounded as if she did. So down she and her husband came, sat and talked, and realized, yes, this lady really has her head together. She knows what she wants. She really does. And she is very serious, and she's ready to work. So the agent went to work with her. They spent the next few days. They're only here for 5 weekdays, their total visit. So it was really, really fast. I introduced her to a number of properties. I went out with a couple of them just to see what there was out there. They finally chose one, made an offer, negotiated an offer, got a good deal, liked it, made the agreement. But she didn't have a lawyer. So I said, early on, it became clear. And I knew she wasn't going to get this thing done in such a short time without the services of a lawyer. So I said, if you want, I can find somebody and recommend them. And she said, okay, do that. I'd appreciate it. So I found a lawyer who was willing to do that, happily, of course. Now, the lawyer has to set up his own fee service with uh, the buyer. I have nothing to do with that. So, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't make any difference at all what lawyer she used. She was going to have to come to some sort of arrangement there. I don't get paid by the lawyer, so it doesn't make any difference to me who it is or what the deal is. But I knew this lawyer, and I thought he can react very quickly to her needs. And he did, and she was happy with that. They set that arrangement, and they found it, they got it. They really, it was very impressive. It was teamwork. The agent, the buyer, and the lawyer all working together in time pressure, but spending the time they needed to get the job done right. By the end of that week, it was completed, but there was still paperwork and other activities that had to go on afterwards. But in this case, she was able to leave a very specific power of attorney with the lawyer to allow him to do certain things that they knew would have to be done. And of course, in consultation with her, so she knew everything that was happening. And that's exactly what has occurred. And everything, there were all sorts of things that had to be worked out, but they were all worked out. It worked very, very well. She was extremely pleased with the whole thing. And I was delighted to see that we were able to help her get through this. So, although I had not thought of it before, I thought, all right, we've had this one test case. It's worked very well. We started from scratch with nothing. We put together the right combination and so forth. Maybe a portion, probably a very small portion, but a portion of people who are at the YouTube channel, who are members of Retirement Wave or so forth, may find themselves in a similar position, and we can help them. It's different than coming down and getting an agent that has his or her own properties to push. That's where the conflict of interest comes in. It gets difficult sometimes. We were able to eliminate that. I thought we'll do that. We'll offer that as a service if people are interested in doing it. But there is a requirement from the other side, so to speak. We're here to work with people, but as in her case, you need to have come down and really come to grips with Panama, where it is you wanted to live. In this case, it has to be the city. We have to keep it there for the moment. I mean, the greater metropolitan area spreads out for ways from the city itself, but it's still something that can easily be dealt with by travel during the course of a day. And the person needs to know what it is, where they want it, what they want, how much they're willing to spend, and so on. If they have that in their minds pretty clearly, based on having been here before, then fine. That's setting it up to work, to succeed. Now, if you were coming down with the first time, I'd say, all right, go spend time. You have to be here longer than a week, but you go and look at the different places here. Make up your mind, as she did, before you go any further. Don't talk to anybody and try to get into the serious business of finding a place and buying it until you're certain where you want to be and what you want. So in this case, it worked, and in other cases like it, it can work. No one is obligated to buy a place just because the service is here, of course, obviously. But it's important that we not get so tied up in knots with an individual client who really doesn't know what he or she wants and isn't really sure what they want to spend and so on and what have you. The whole service would collapse. So I'm not even interested at all in getting involved with that. But if you are someone of that sort, or if you do plan on being here and are here long enough to do your visiting to different parts of the country that interests you, and if you end up in that particular position that she was in, then by all means, we can try to help you. Now, maybe there are ways we can expand that service in the future, but one step at a time, let's see if it works. If it doesn't work for everybody successfully, then it's not worth the trouble and the pain and agony. But in this instance, if it does work, it's just I know Brenda has written very clearly on this. She could not have done it without us. She hadn't had that agent there checking these properties out, setting up the appointments to visit them, and taking her over to see them, and the lawyer there saying, this is what you need to do, this is what you have to say, and so forth. These are the forms you have to fill out. I hope I played some role back in there by just being with them from time to time and listening to what they had to say, visiting a bank to set up an account, all the things that need to get done in order to get this finished. Uh, it just works so well. It's not fair to have had it work that well, not to share it with others, even if that's only a tiny percentage of the membership or the viewership here at the YouTube channel. If we can do it for them, we can do it for others. So that's what we're working on right now. I'm not going to go into any further detail. I don't need to at this point. What I'm talking about is exactly what we're offering. We will have it up and more explanation, of course, eventually on the site. But I think it's something, at least, that a step. Ever since I did the member survey, what they're looking for, what they want to do, I have spent a lot of time trying to find different ways that we can help people, because it's one thing to do a survey and nice thing to talk about. It's another thing to actually find ways to use the information and use the experience of interchange with members and so forth to actually come up with services that help them get what they need done in a way that's suitable and ethical and intelligent. So that's what happened, and maybe it will happen again, and you'll be the first to hear. So on that note, I thank you very much for stopping by, and I hope to have another video up here very soon.